Betsy, what brings you to the Franchise for Humanity?
A lot of my friends are here. I'm really interested in the kind of work that they do. I know Maylin and a lot of the people that are here.
What is it about the work that interests you? Do you have similar interests to what the conference is going after?
I'm definitely interested in innovation. And the work that I do is around the neuroscience of insight and how the brain works.
Oh, that's a really interesting
coming
topic.
Up with insights.
Yeah, so do you have any good insights into how the brain works? I'm very interested in that topic.
Yeah, well, I have had a lot of experiences with getting those kind of big flashes in the shower and having it being really effective. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to figure out how to make it happen more often. A lot of people consider it's just the muse and you can't do anything. It just sort of shows up. Often when you're in the shower, often when you're on a long drive or a long talk. Excuse me, a long...
We'll just ignore the noise down
okay.
there. Okay. So you say that one of the important issues we're faced with, in addition to climate change and nuclear war and things like that, is just learning how to use our own minds better and more effectively, because maybe that could lead to a solution of other problems.
Well, I see a real difference between an idea and an insight. So when you get an idea, there's sort of like, there are a dime a dozen, there's a zillion ideas. Whether it is in climate change or all these different areas, what counts is that flash of insight where you actually have this sense of surety that it's the right answer, and that just propels you into action. So I think of insight as ideas with action embedded in them.
So you're looking for ways to use the mind so that insights don't just happen randomly and haphazardly, but you can sort of create them at will.
Exactly. Well, you can seed your brain to come up with more of them. So when I experienced these kinds of insights a lot, I wanted to figure out how it worked. I realized it had a whole lot to do with the way the brain works. So the brain has about 1 billion neurons, and that's like the size of the Milky Way. And it turns out that when you get an insight, it means there's been a new neural connection in your Milky Way brain. But by the fact that it's new, it's therefore weak by definition, and so you have to have low signal noise in your brain in order to be aware of those new neural connections. High signal noise is when you're really freaked out or you're trying really hard, worried, upset about something, and you could be having all kinds of new neural connections happening in your brain. You're not even going to be aware of it because the brain has such high signal noise. But when you have low signal noise, you can be aware of them. There was a study that was done at the University of London where they gave all the subjects insight problems to solve. So they weren't problems you could figure out iteratively. You had to get that flash of insight in order to figure out the problem. And they wired all the subjects up to EEG while they were doing this problem, and they could predict up to 8 seconds before the insight hit and the solution came to the subject because their brains went into alpha waves,
so
which is that low signal noise state that you're in, like in the shower or on a long walk or drive.
So are insights about seeing connections? You solve a problem because you saw how something connects which you didn't notice previously?
Yeah, and actually there's research being done by George Lakoff and other scientists, neuroscientists, that are realizing that the prefrontal cortex is very linear thinking, but the rest of your brain is really parallel processing. And so there could be a combination of things that you know in your Milky Way brain, but they're not connected, and so you're not coming up with a solution. And actually metaphors are the mechanisms the brain uses to connect those different parts of the brain, and that sparks the insight. And the insight, I know my experience and the people that I talk to, insight is really different. You just know it's the right answer and you get into action.
And is this achieved by some sort of relaxation or meditation? Because I would think maybe if you're very stressed, it would be hard for insights to emerge.
Exactly. So meditation does it, like I said, showers, long walks, that kind of thing. And then really what I've been passionate about is figuring out easy effortless and fun techniques that people can do where they don't have to do any mental gymnastics or be a master meditator, but they just do a simple technique and it can seed their Milky Way brain to come up with more insights for them.
Now, there's also a theory that says that our brains are connected in a kind of a network. So if you suddenly get an inspiration, it may be that your brain manufactured it, but it might be that you received it from someplace else. Like when a composer says, I just heard this symphony in my head and I just wrote it down. Did he create it, or did he receive it like a radio receiver from someplace else? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think there's all kinds of things going on that we're just not aware that they're going on. It's like, you know, a couple hundred years ago, people didn't know about how to use electricity. And that would have been kind of woo-woo back then. And I think that there's all kinds of connections going on that we probably just don't have the machinery and the capability of measuring it. So I suspect that's what's going on, but we don't know yet.
Now, if you're working on gaining insight into how insights work, are you doing this as an activity? You're doing this with other people? Is it a collaborative effort where people share knowledge? I mean, how do you pursue it?
Well,
hold on a second, please.
Sure.
Kathy, please keep your clipboard out of sight. Kathy, please keep your clipboard out of sight. Thank you.
and was that my phone?
She's not you.
Okay.
It just pops, and she's got this bright green clipboard.
That's my phone.
Hang on one second.
Oh,
Okay.
where were we?
All right, let's
We'll roll back and ask the questions.
okay.
Hit it, Marty.
Okay, so I guess what I was asking is, okay, so you're interested in this field of how insights work and how insights take place in the
Right.
brain. So were you actively working on this as an effort with other people? And how are you pursuing this?
Okay, that's a different question. I have been very fascinated by the information that's coming out in the study of neuroscience. The last few years, there's been, I feel like, a real shift in the zeitgeist as far as actually kind of public knowledge about new neuroscience research. So there is studies that have been done about the neuroscience of insight. So I've been reading those and talking to people that are involved in all of that. I had already developed a number of my techniques ahead of time, and then I realized how understanding what was going on in the brain made it really explained a lot of the work that I was already doing. One of the things that I've noticed happening in the business world is, first of all, businesses need to run much more collaboratively these days, and it really needs those kind of soft skills that enable collaboration to happen. And I've been in big conferences with leaders from very large companies, and they're paired on the stage with leading neuroscientists from around the world. And actually, I was at a conference like that a couple of years ago, and it dawned on me that what was happening was neuroscience was giving a lot of the CEOs that can be pretty linear thinkers, hierarchical kind of thinkers, realizing that neuroscience gave hard science rationale to soft skills and could more easily embrace them and use them in their work.
Do you think it's going to take a new kind of thinking to solve some of the problems that the world faces today?
Absolutely. And I think there's this massive amount of information that's literally in everybody's brain. The tacit knowledge that we have is huge. But it, again, is in your Milky Way brain, kind of parallel processing. It's not connected. And it's a huge resource that is laying fallow right now.
Do you feel that this conference is bringing some of that knowledge together and helping to move this issue forward?
Getting people together and sparking those different connections in people's brains, absolutely essential.
Okay, we're almost out of time. Do you have any more comments you'd like to make, last minute comments? Now that you have an audience of this vast number of people listening to you, this is your opportunity to make any point you'd like.
Well, a lot about the brain works like a Google database search. So the kind of keywords that you put in your search field can change what kind of answers that you get out. And actually, a lot of times we set up that a problem is really hard and difficult and impossible, and it's like putting those keywords in there and the brain just goes, oh, so you want another reason why it's difficult and impossible, I'll give it to you. You know, you open up and ask your brain how you could make something easy, even if it seems like it's just a really hard problem. Actually, your brain will go and search and look for answers that way, and you can come up with things coming from a different direction.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Cool.
It was a pleasure.